Welcome back, everyone, to the Seven Figure Club podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Longmore. I am with Judy Vee today. You're in for a real treat because Judy is not only an international best-selling author, award-winning entrepreneur, and speaker. She's the co-founder of Tribe of Traders and creator of Trilogy of Transformation and the Attune to Prosperity brand. So she knows a thing or two about wealth creation and running businesses and so on. In fact, over the past 20 years, she has built and sold numerous multi-million dollar businesses in many categories, including starting the first ever online coaching business in 2000. She's studied and researched human potential for over 20 years, and she has an understanding that human behavior and potential is not allowed to create massively successful pioneering businesses, but overcome the most extraordinary challenge of being locked up throughout her childhood until she escaped in her early 20s. And Judy, when I read your story about that, and you and I had already booked this, I was like, oh my goodness, we are going to have a lot to chat about. So thank you, first of all, for being here. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be here, and it's just been amazing how quickly since we connected, we just seem to be on the same frequency and keep connecting. So it's just amazing.
I know. I think we were even running our wealth challenges at the same time. I feel
I think
like
you were, yes.
if it wasn't the exact same week, it was around the same time. Not that that made an issue. I don't mean that, but I just thought, oh yeah, we are in sync. Like we're just finding each other. A lot of things are linking up. So, and you probably don't know this about me, but I used to investigate crimes against children for many, many years. And
Oh
so I had
wow.
some cases where children were locked up for many years. And I won't go into all the other horrific stories because
Hmm.
you and I could, you probably actually have cultivated a lot of um, resiliency around that, meaning like you can probably handle hearing that kind of stuff. But people that
Yes.
haven't been exposed to it, it tends to create a lot of vicarious trauma. So I'm not going to go into detail, but I will say that when I read your story, I thought, ugh, like if people knew how often those kind of situations are happening and never knowing about it, right? And because
Yeah.
it's usually happening in homes you don't expect when you look on the outside of the house. And additionally, perpetrators, as you well know, will position themselves where they're like playing baseball with a bunch of police officers. So, if you were to ever say anything, like it's, there's a whole strategy that perpetrators can have. I'm not saying all of them, but because your situation went on for so long, I'm going to venture a guess that your dad, especially, right? Because I know that he tried to come and get you at the airport,
Yeah.
was probably very strategic in how he made sure that he held you captive and nobody would have known. So I don't know how much of that you want to go into, but I do think it's a pretty remarkable story because people wouldn't expect that someone who's locked up and has to escape and literally flee the country is going to end up being a multimillionaire and now living your dream life in Barbados. So, do you mind giving us a little bit of the backstory of that?
No, not at
Okay.
all. Because actually, in that trauma, in that drama, in that horror, there is the greatest blessing. So no, I don't mind at all. Um, and it there was a number of people involved, and it was really pretty traumatic, and it was involved a lot of torture. And again, um, there's no need to go into the detail of that, but it was horrific, near death many times. But the one the turning point for me was, if I can go into it for a few minutes, which is really important in terms of, well, what I understand to be the truth about wealth creation. And when I was about 15, I was a person that lived and was alive only because my heart beat. I was nothing. I felt like nothing. I was empty. I just existed. I didn't think. I just was a piece of meat with a heart that beat, really. And one morning, after about 12, 14 hours of torture, um, I walked into the bathroom and I closed the door, went up to the hand basin, looked in the mirror, and it was almost like the first time I remember ever actually seeing myself. And as I looked in the mirror, I saw my face. I had a bruised cheek, blood on my lips, and I had this really threadbare, pale nightgown torn. And as I looked at myself, and I found myself drawn to my eyes. And the next moment, what happened was something sort of pulled me, and it was almost like something was reaching down into my solar plexus and grabbing something. And for the next number of years, I called it my something, and I grabbed it. And as I grabbed it, something tremendous happened. Now, I called it my something because I'd been locked up. I had not socialized, not schooling. I didn't have interaction with society at all. And as I grabbed my something, I was transcended out of my physical or mortal body into this space. And it was the most extraordinary space. And it was, I could hear and see things, but I was also part of things. Like I could hear the rain on the window, and I was part of that rain on the window. I could hear the wind, the wind in the leaves on the trees, and I was part of that wind and those leaves. And I could hear a lawnmower cutting grass. I was part of that grass. I could smell it. I felt one with the grass, and it was just the most transformative moment. And in that moment, in that space, this weirdest feeling consumed me that was alien to me, and was like, at first it was like really, it was shocking, but I wasn't scared. But it was this wash of feeling, and it was like something I'd never experienced before, but yet not scared. And what it was I was being consumed by a sense of love and peace and joy and happiness. And as I sort of felt into that, got more used to, more comfortable with that, it's almost like then I could see things, and I could see my younger self, and in that moment, it's almost like they were all simultaneously happening, various of significant events through my that I had experienced so far. I could see my current environment, and I could see the future, and I could see so many different things that were completely and utterly not predictable. I didn't think when in that time. I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no vision for future, nothing. I wasn't educated. I could hardly read or write. And I had no vision for what would be the future. But in this space, I could see multiple potentialities, multiple possibilities, multiple options, all in one. And I could see, and I could pave out and go from one to the other in this state of incredible joy and happiness. And as I'm experiencing this, almost like my life panning out in front of me, which one, how, what, it's just like, it was just the most transformative moment, knowing and seeing the number of possibilities. And then what I remember feeling was that despite physically feeling pain as I looked in the mirror before I had this experience, and despite feeling like just a piece of meat, I had nothing but love and appreciation and gratitude for everything in that moment, even my experience, even the life I was living. It was the most incredible moment where I understood that we are far more than our mortal body. We are one with the universe, and the universe is us, and there is no separation. And hell on earth is trying to separate them. So, and it felt like I was in this space for hours. And when I sort of came back into the bathroom, it was, I don't know how long, but I think it was only minutes, or probably not even minutes, but it felt like an eternity. And when I walked out of that bathroom, I was a different girl that walked in. I walked out strong, empowered, knowing, inner sense, my something. I knew that nothing and no one can break my something. You can hurt my mortal body, but you will never break my spirit. My spirit is mine and mine alone, and it belongs to the universe, and the universe is me. And that changed everything for me. From that, it took a number more years for me to escape. But that is not the issue. Again, when we talk, because this is one of the other issues, is that we have a false construct of time. Another form of what stops us in wealth building is that we put times in place. Time is irrelevant. Time is a false construct. And in those few years that I was preparing myself, I started studying, I got clear about exactly what I would do when I would get away. I had no idea how I would get away, but I knew I would. And I trusted and I knew I would be at the right time. I lost any fear. Yes, there was a lot of trauma that happened over the following years, but my something gave me something powerful, and something shifted. At never any point in time did I feel like just a piece of meat. I felt like a strong person, unbreakable. My physical body went through stuff, but not my soul. And then I was like, I became, in that moment, in that transcendent experience moment, the weirdest thing and totally crazy, having such a deeply spiritual moment, what I landed on in that moment is where I was destined to go, was to study and understand finance. And when I got out, work in banking, stockbroking, I didn't even know what a stockbroker was. Stockbroking, banking, merchant banking, oil, gas, something around that makes the world go round and go in, or the economics go round in terms of money. What is money? And understanding the energetics behind money. I knew that, even though half the words I was saying in my head, I didn't understand. It was just coming at me. So there, I spent the next number of years studying. And one of the great things that my father did give me was that when I wanted books, he gave me books. I think because my energy shifted, his energy shifted. And whilst he didn't relinquish the power, he did provide me with books and stuff that I wanted. And I knew that by the time I escaped, I knew that I would get a job as a trading accountant, or in banking, or stockbroking, or shipping. No education, no experience, nothing. I tried to escape a few times, ended up back. And this one time, which the story you read, I knew I had to leave the country. So I went to the airport, and I fly out of Dublin to land in London. And when I landed in London, I knew nobody had nowhere to go. But within a week, I had a job as a trading accountant on oil and gas trading floor, being paid an extraordinary amount of money. And I was able to do that work. And people say to me, but you weren't an accountant. But you didn't know how, you'd never looked at a computer. You'd never even seen a computer. How does that happen? How do you get a job like that? This is the power of knowing that you're one of the universe, and we have access to the universal intelligence at all times. And that is the significant part of wealth building, of creating abundance in our life, is being in that energetic alignment and focused without evidence of what it is that you would love, what it is you desire, without evidence. It wasn't predictable that I would go to London and get a highly paid job as a trading accountant on a trading floor. But it was in the realms of potentiality. There was potential. I applied for the job. I got an interview. I got the job. There's potentiality, but there's not predictability in it. And being able to stay in that zone of potentiality without requiring the need for evidence. And that evidence and timing are the two strangleholds we have when it comes to building wealth and abundance in our life. And it went from there. So
That's just, it's so incredible to hear that. And I mean, there's so much I could say and yet nothing to say at the same time, because It was just so profound. And I'm so grateful, by the way, that you did escape. I recognize that in hindsight, we can look at these situations in our life and perhaps we make peace with some things or we recognize how it prepared us for other things and so on. But still, you as that child with, totally helpless and needing to look to your abuser to also be your provider,
Hmm.
right, has got to be a pretty wild way to to live, for lack of a better way of putting it. And because I was thinking, well, how did you even know to that you were worthy enough of leaving, and how did you even know if you had no concept of what was going on in the world, right? But like you said, there was a bigger intelligence that was at play there. But I've got to
Yeah.
think that your worthiness, there would have, I'm guessing, had to be some component of your worthiness that you needed to work through in order to be able to receive all of this money that was coming through this new job, because you weren't even used to having any. Like how did you even adjust to going from owning nothing, maybe a few books, to a ton of money coming in your lap essentially?
Yeah. Um, I yeah, because there were days we would have I would have no food. So and I lived most of my life with my father's old clothes. So I didn't even have my own clothes, didn't even have girls' clothes. So to now be living in London, working in near Tottenham Court Road, um, it was massive um, shift. But one of the things that I was very fortunate in that for at least a year, I lived an extremely low key life for at least a year. And purely because I was terrified. I was terrified of being found out. So my ego stepped in to protect me, to protect for my mortal body, my human stepped in to protect me. And then I remember the first time I was paid, I went into because on Tottenham Court Road there used to be a lot of record shops and music shops, and my first time I got paid, I got a system, a hi-fi system, a music system, and that was about the only thing that I bought for about a year, and I hardly did anything. I was exhausted. I slept a lot, and it was almost like my ego went into survival mode, just protection. But when I came out of that, like after close on a year, then it was the gloves were off and it was party time, and I lived extravagantly, without doubt. I discovered champagne, I discovered oysters, I discovered taxis, and I would get a taxi to work. I would never go on the underground, and I discovered clothes and all this sort of stuff, and and parties and boys, and so it was quite a ride. It was quite an experience. But I think my survival um, was stronger than my ability to manage receiving that amount of money. My survival instinct was so strong that it literally shut down a lot of my senses, that I went into survival mode, and I slept a lot um, for the first while. So and
Hmm.
so a lot of healing goes on when you're doing that. um, so that when I came to the other end and the wild party started, it wasn't as potentially detrimental as it could have been. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, but um, it was. It took me a long time. Took me many years to lose the memory of that one experience, and I was very much guided by that, because and everything I did for years after that was based on that experience. Um, soon after that, I moved to South Africa, and and I had tons of different experiences in that as well, in traveling and so on. But soon after that, I moved to South Africa, and I kept getting fired from my jobs. So I kept on getting fired. Actually, like eventually, I made a joke. It was a joke. I was making a career out of being fired from jobs, not because I didn't know how to do the work. It was because I wasn't a conformist, as you can imagine, in the corporate world, taking this wild child. I was not a conformist, so it always ended up after 10 months, a year, that I would be paid off to go quietly. So I was building wealth being fired from jobs. So that's how I started. But in South Africa, in Cape Town, the last time I was fired from a job, I'll never forget walking out. It was a summer afternoon, and I mean, I had done amazing things in this business, in this corporate, amazing things that really shifted a lot of stuff and had incredible success. But I always upset the apple tart. So I remember being paid off and walking out and the sun setting behind Table Mountain and just looking up at the sky and saying, what now? Surely this wasn't part of the plan. So, and then out of nowhere, just this realization, straight away, as quick as lightning, when I felt that momentary sort of like, what now? Because I honestly had ran out of steam for looking for another job, to get fired from another job. How many more must I do this? And this voice within me just said, do your own thing. Okay. Sounds like a good idea. No idea how to do, what to do, anything, but trust, faith, belief. And I did. I started a business called Duality, purely because I had a fixation for toys, never having had toys growing up, even though this mid-20-year-old woman had a fixation for toys. So I started Duality, and this is way before the days of the internet and internet banking and payment gateways and all this. And it was a huge success. Even to the point you couldn't print like you did now. So I would hand draw my posters and stuff. And that was a massive success. And I learned so much about human behavior. That's where my interest got piqued about human behavior. And that's where I started researching and studying human behavior. And I've gone on to create many different businesses since then, not look back. So we have, one of the things I always say to people is that there's a, and this is something I know, Jennifer, you would talk about all the time, is that we have a feminine and a masculine energy, and in that feminine energy we are one with the universe. It's energy, and that's where we're one with the end. That's our being state. It's the masculine energy is in the doing and the what and how and the hustle and the stress and the tactics and all that. That's very much the masculine energy. But when we've learned to entangle so much with the masculine energy, which is driven from the ego, which by its very definition is limited, therefore everything we perceive through the ego is limited and finite. But anything, when we're in the being state, the feminine energy state, it's limitless. There's infinite potentiality, limitless possibilities. It is abundant. So, and it's what I call our ability to marry our masculine and feminine energies to create what we would love, or what I say, marry your inner technology, which is your feminine energy, with the masculine or the outer technology. The extent to which you can master that dance with the universe is the extent to which you will create abundance and exponential wealth in your life. But more than that, what is really more important, because a lot of people talk about wealth and abundance, but what's more important than that, because the one thing that you lose money, you can make money. You don't make a sale today, you can make a sale another day. You don't make your target this month, you'll make it another. But one thing you cannot ever get back is time. We don't understand time. We forced a round peg into a square hole when it comes to time. We live by time on a false construct, and that is the biggest limiter to our extraordinariness, to living to the fullest extent of our potential, because we try and force it into a time frame, and then when it doesn't happen in that time frame, we put so much meaning to that because we don't have evidence of our success or evidence of creating what it is we would love. We now judge and label it, and that becomes finite, it becomes limited, it becomes lack, it becomes scarce. And then we wrap time in it. Whereas when you're in that feminine energy and you're co-creating with the universe in that feminine energy, where there's abundance at all times, infinite possibilities and options and multiple truths in that moment, you collapse time. you powerfully collapse time, because in this masculine energy, we live in a one-dimensional time zone. But in the feminine energy, there's two-dimensional, minimum two-dimensional, more likely more than that, but minimum two. There's the now. Well, depending on how I talk about this in different ways, but minimum two. One is the now, where we are now, what we do now and the next moment. So 1 foot in the now, 1 foot in the next moment. And if the more we master our ability to live in that, the more we collapse in time, living in two dimensions. But there's another zone to it, because we're always living in the past, present, and future. That it's always with us, every single moment of every single day. The past, present, and future is always with us. But the more we bring in the past into our now, the more we are putting matter into our life. We're turning pure energy into matter, which by itself is dense and finite. And how we master, how we overcome that is how we then shift our perceptions about what we've experienced, the conditionings that we have, the challenges that we've experienced, and how we perceive those, and the judgments we've gained or garnered, and belief systems that we've built up as a result of that. Because no longer more of that we bring into this moment in time, then more this moment in time is not an innocent moment in time with infinite possibilities and potentiality. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I talk a lot about collapsing time and space because we have been so conditioned to focus on how much time is passing. We've been focused on our time, and our effort is associated with how much money we make and so on. But I will say that if I am going to get offended, it's when people waste my time. I get really, I become, I don't know about you, I'm guessing you probably have. Over the years, I've become such an impeccable steward of my resources, meaning my energy, my time, and my money, but particularly my time. And when I attract too much of what I would say is time wasting stuff, right? Where people push and pull with me, or people cancel, frequently, whatever the thing is, right? Then I have to go, okay, I need to have an honest look with myself now and say, where am I wasting time? Because I know that my outer reality is just reflecting back to me
Yes.
what's
Yeah.
happening in my unconscious behavior, for example. But I'm glad you're talking about this, because so many people fixate on how can I get more, meaning get more money, right? Get more clients, get more contacts, get more followers, whatever. And if they understood how to dance with time,
Mm.
right? I think that would be supporting them. So, one of the things that we do on the podcast is share with people what are the inner shifts that we have to make, and what are the outer shifts that we need to make to make our first million, right? Usually through a business. Most people listening to this will be business owners, not everyone. Some people might just be open to, hey, I'm open to however the universe wants to provide for me. But when you look at not only your own journey, but I know you've coached so many people around money, what are some of the inner shifts that you're seeing specifically for seven figures that people need to make in order to allow it in?
Um, yeah, it's for the so many people. There's a whole host here. For so many people, making six figures is it's strategic and tactical. It's in the masculine energy, and then they get there, and then they just battle to make the step to the seven figures, because that's an energetic shift. It's on a different frequency. Six figures, even like high six figures like 9999, is on a different frequency to the seven figures. And because we get used to, because we have evidence of their six figures, we're used to it, we see evidence, it's become predictable. We often, what happens is we forget what it took us to get to there. So the first thing that I would do is there's a few things that come in here. One is it's a different energetic match. So you need to become the energetic match for the seven figures. The second one is they get entangled with the six figures, okay, and concerned and worried about keeping that, and fearful that they had a great month, they had a great year, I made multiple six figures, but straight away the fear steps in. But what if I don't do it again? And that energetic again is out of potentiality, out of possibility, and into lack. Energetically, that's now lack. You're now entangling in lack. So what I get people to do is dance in the what if I do this and better. Because we stress about what if I don't do it again? What if I can't do it again? Desiring more is okay. Again, a lot of people don't, I think, understand or are afraid or feel guilty about having gratitude for what they have right now, and think, well, if they have grateful for what they have right now, they can't desire more. But this is part of collapsing time, is being able to have incredible appreciation for what you've got right now and where you're at right now, and more, and desire more. And the other thing is as well, energetically, what shifts, what will hold people from shifting from the six figures to the seven figures is that it becomes a need. They need the seven figures. They've had such incredible growth, and then they hit a ceiling. And this can happen even if you're in the five figures, going into this and stopping you getting into the six figures, or the low six figures getting into high six figures, or six figures getting into seven figures. There's many different ways this will show up, and it then becomes a need. And this is one of the most incredible breakthroughs that people have, is when they understand the difference between need and desire. Because our mind, every fiber of our body doesn't understand the difference between imagination and reality. So when I'm talking to you about my experiences back as a child, I'm back there energetically. I'm back there. I'm that child again, right? We are all like that. Okay, we don't know the difference. We relive it. That's why it's important to understand when you're just running a story, because when you're running the story, you're back in that limited perception again, as opposed to observing. Okay, big difference being in it and observing. So when you, where was I? So when you, it becomes a need, just like when your mind doesn't know the difference between conscious and subconscious mind, or sorry, mind doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. When we are in need, it triggers energetically our ego, which triggers our survival instincts, the predator-prey drivers. When actual fact, when we start to understand what we actually need has no relationship to what we desire, which is on a completely different energetic field, and we then allow ourselves to focus on the desire rather than the need, that's when the magic starts happening. The need is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like, we need water, we need air, we need a roof over our heads, we need personal safety, we need our family to be personally safe, physically safe. They're all that we need. And that is appropriate. That's the role of the ego. That's the role of our ego, of our mortal body, right? That's the role of our ego, is to protect us in a mortal zone. It's not its role to create a life fulfilled with abundance and prosperity, where we get to be, do, and have absolutely everything our heart and soul desires. That's not the ego's role. But the moment you classify what that is that you would love into need, it takes over. And you're now out of the energetic match of desire. One of the ways, and that is the biggest shift for most people that I work with, is being able to stay in the energetic match of desire, gratitude for what they've achieved, and appreciation and the desire for more. And that it all comes back to the energetic state, the being. So one of the things I would say to people, and this is a really good sort of like test as to self-check, I suppose, is that imagine you are standing in a field in the middle of nowhere. There is absolutely nothing around. There's no one around. It's warm, it's comfortable, and you're naked. And you're standing there with nothing, with no one. No relationships, no money, none of that matters. None of that, let go of all of that. Let go of all of the money, the success, the perceptions, the relationships, the status. Let go all of that. Who are you in that state, in that moment? Who are you? How are you feeling? Happy? Grateful? Love? Abundant? For no reason. That's the energetic check-in with yourself. When you can be that without any of the other stuff, you can slip into then activating your desires, because that's where it all starts. When you're asking yourself, how do I do this? Or what can I do? Or what can I do? What if I don't do it again? Or can I do it again? And it's too late. You're out of that energetic match. It flows. When you're in an energetic zone of frequency, of abundance and prosperity, you are able to walk in duality. You are able to understand the difference between entangling with challenge and observing challenge, entangling with the little voice coming up saying, I need to make 6 figures, or I need to make 7 figures, and observing. Yeah, I see you. Go back to bed there now. Be good. I see you. Don't entangle with it. The moment we entangle with it, then we're entrapped by it, and we're now in predictability. And that's what you'll get, is predictable results. But the more you can actually walk in duality, and if you're feeling challenged, if you're feeling fearful, if you're feeling uncomfortable with anything, ask yourself, am I safe? Am I safe? Are my needs met? Am I in physical danger? Am I in mortal danger? And answer is no. Good. Am I uncomfortable? Yeah. What can I manage? What's the worst that can happen with this discomfort? Because we have to take uncomfortable steps to make those shifts. So what's the worst that can happen? And ask yourself, well, if that's the worst that can happen, can I handle that? No, not so much. Okay, that's fine. Then what can I handle? And do that. And then work your way up to it. But if you say to yourself, yeah, I can handle that. I can handle it. I'll be safe. I know I'll be safe. I can handle the worst case scenario. What's the best thing that can happen? So it's about navigating duality without entangling with either side, not just the challenge, but also entangling with being infatuated with whatever's going on, or being infatuated with the 7 figures. And the other thing is that we're always manifesting, as you know, there's no off switch. There's one potential area of an off switch, and that comes down to our survival, our self-protection. But generally speaking, there is no off switch when it comes to manifesting. But the problem is we're not always manifesting what we would love. We think. That's because we don't understand what it is we're getting. We immediately say, we're clear about what it is we would love, but we don't get it in the form that we would love. We're not appreciating the fact that the universe is omnipresent, omniscience, and we're not. And it's giving us what we need to become the person to have what we desire. So it's about how you perceive what you're getting on the way. So it's everything. If you're not getting the 7 figures, or if you're struggling to go from 6 figures to 7 figures, why? What's going on? What's the universe trying to tell you? What are you not seeing? What are the gifts that you've been given, but you're actually repelling them because you're seeing them as not what you want? Remember, the one important thing is there's nothing ever is in the way. Everything is on the way. Everything is on the way. And when you can appreciate that from an energetic perspective, the doors are open. And they will always come from places that you least expect it, when you least expect it. And it happened like that. Because when we say it will take X amount to get to 7 figures, or X amount to make 6 figures in a month, or X amount to take 7 figures in a day, I've had 2 occasions in my life I've made 7 figures in one phone call. 2 occasions. It wasn't predictable, came out of nowhere. But when you're an energetic match for that figure, it comes out of nowhere, and it will come from where you least expect it. So the more you can be in the energetic zone of potentiality, the more you will create effortlessly.
Mhm.
Not saying you won't have challenge. Of course you will have challenge, but you will dance with the universe with the challenge. You will observe it. You will entangle with it. The moment, and the more you, here's an interesting thing that I've learned, is that more that you're living energetically in that feminine zone of being, the more it creates a certain state, creates a certain persona, creates a certain sense, certain set of senses that when you find yourself entangling with the masculine energy of or in challenge in the masculine energy, you actually feel it physically in your body, and it becomes a feedback mechanism. Your body becomes a feedback mechanism. Your autonomic nervous system becomes a feedback mechanism to remind you that you're out of balance, and you get that becomes more and more heightened the more and more you experience being in that feminine energy. So hopefully that was useful.
Yeah, totally. Well, so much in there. I love what you said. It's, sometimes it's the most innocuous sentences that kind of get us, but you said nothing's in the way, it's on the way, which I think is just so fascinating that we're just literally taking out one letter in that whole sentence, right? And it changes everything. I'm hearing people, I like to tune in and think, okay, what are questions people going to have based on what you've shared? And you've said a few times becoming an energetic match. And a lot of people use that. And you and I both know because we have actually embodied wealth, like we can
Mm.
tell, we know what that means. There's a lot of people that throw that out that are teaching wealth creation, but they don't really get what that means, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
So for people that need it to be a little more practically broken down, what are some ways in which we can become an energetic match?
Right. And this is one of the things I do with my traders, because a lot of a reason why I got into trading was um, because trading has got such a bad rep, and unfortunately, and that's because it's one, sold wrong, and people get into trading for the wrong reasons, with a fantasy that they're going to get into trading and they're going to make 30, 40, 50 million dollars in a year or two. And yes, the data shows that you can do that, but are you the person to have you got the power, the personal power to handle that money? Are you the person to be able to handle that money? And if you're not, then you won't get it. The universe is not going to destruct you, right? You're not going to get it. Okay. Again, look at lottery winners. I mean, as point in case, they just disrupt, they disintegrate, they lose it all. So one of the things that I talk about, I get with my traders as an exercise, it's very practical, is they come to me and they say, I'm losing, I don't know why I'm losing, I can't get successful, this is a scam and whatever. And I say, okay, fine. Would you love to be profitable in trading? Yes, I'd love to be profitable in trading. Good, right. So what is your target? I want 50 million. Oh, really? So what's your net worth now? About 20,000. Okay, right. There's your first problem, right? How do you even know what a million is? How do you even know what that is? How do you know what that feels? You've got no idea. So the first thing is to be practical, right? So where are you at? What are you an energetic match for? Here's the thing, people often don't understand the difference between wealth, between finance wealth and wealth as a state of being, okay? We assume when we're talking about wealth, we're talking about finance. No, wealth is everything. It encompasses all areas of life. Wealth encompasses health, wealth, success, health, wealth, our spirituality, our relationships, our physical being, our vocation, our career. It's in so many different areas of life, our wealth. So, okay, so where are you at? What are you at? You're like net worth of 25,000. Okay, cool. That's financially. Where else have you got wealth? You know, what value would you put on it? Where is your million? Where is your billion? That's what the exercise I do with people. So and then we monetize that. So if somebody says to me, oh, my children are my wealth, my fitness is my wealth, or my job is my wealth, my career, my business, whatever it might be, is my wealth. And we work with them then to become an energetic match and find what is that value, what is the financial value of that. And generally speaking, it'll turn out to be, a good sum of money. So that's the one. So therefore they see that in their life, they have, if they were to sell it, right, and argumentatively speaking, if they were to sell it, they could have 1 million or 750 or 2 million, whatever it might be, 5 million, whatever it might be. And they start feeling that their life is that. There's an energy shift in that exercise. Then we start looking at, okay, so depending, again, this is the level of conversation I would have with people who are not yet financially secure, financially resilient. Be like, okay, so most people don't understand what it is that they require financially in order to be financially resilient or have some level of financial independence. Most people assume it's millions. It's not. It's most often just a few 100,000. And when they start understanding that, unraveling that. So if you had cash reserves for 10 years, given your current standard of living, how much would, if you didn't work for another day for the next 10 years, how much would you need based on your current standard of living? Normally speaking, it's like 200, 300, 500, 700,000, depending on where you're at in life. Do you think you can make that? When you can start seeing evidence that you can actually make it, when you can start seeing the predictability of you being able to create that number, you start energetically being in that, you are then a match for that. And the more and this is one of the things that I go through with my clients, is I've got this thing called the wealth thermometer, which my clients do all the time. And this helps them increase that number all the time. So as they're increasing that number and increasing that wealth ceiling, they're increasing their net worth as they're going along. And this is, so when you start understanding where you're at, understand that you're an energetic match for that, and you're desiring more, and you're not in the need, you're in the desire mode, you start creating more, and the more space you make for more. That's what I talk about being an energetic match. So you can actually take it right down to brass tacks. Okay, so what are you an energetic match right now? What does your life demonstrate that you're an energetic match for? And often it's more than what we think it is. And the thing is, like, one of the things that I've learned is that there's a big difference between, let's say, as somebody who's starting out as an entrepreneur, there's a big difference between startup and breaking the first six figures. There's quite a range of energetic frequencies in that zone. But from the 6 figures to, say, sort of like 500,000-600,000, there's not. Then from the 500,000-600,000 to the 900,000, there's not. But from the 900,000 into the 7 figures, there's quite a few that you need. So there are certain points in which it's a different string. It's a different energetic string that we need to be a match for. And it's about doing this energetic work to become that match. But you start with where you're at right now, understanding where you are an energetic match. Now, I was offered seven figures on a phone call in 2004 on a project, to walk away from a project that I had created. And because the big boys, it was a property development deal, big boys wanted it. And was on a phone call, offered 7 figures. I'll give it to you today. No, today, walk away, 7 figures in your account today. I was not an energetic match for that. I said no. I said no to that. It was too big. I couldn't comprehend it. I could not comprehend it. I could not comprehend. But the irony was I had multiple 7-figure assets, but I could not see the 7 figures. Could not see cash 7 figures. And that's when I really started to dig deep into this work. And about 3 years later, I was offered 7 figures on another call for another business. But that's second thinking, I took it. So it's about starting off being clear about where you are right now, And when you're clear about where you are right now, it's easy to grow that, especially with the wealth thermometer that I work with clients.
Hmm. I love that. It sounds like we do some similar things there, because I do think we're always calibrating our energetic minimum and maximum, meaning like, okay, I've reached this now, so I don't need to do it again. It's just about, okay, now this ceiling, the thing that was once my ceiling is now my floor. And then
Yes.
here's my range. And then,
Yeah.
taking the range where it's going. So, I mean, Judy, there's so much we can talk about, and we don't have the time today. I'd love to be able to have you come back, but I know people are going to be really eager to know, first of all, how they can stay in touch with you and what your main business is right now that they can get involved with.
Well, well, I have a Facebook group when it's not being hacked, which, which is called Attune to Wealth. So my business is Attune to Prosperity, and I came with that because that experience I told you about when I was about 15. I've had a few of those since, and I'm really fortunate that I'm able to do them without being triggered by trauma. So, and some of my biggest and most profound breakthroughs happen on those. And one of them was actually a few months ago here in Barbados. And so Attune to Prosperity is my brand. And it's like a reminder for me, for everybody and for everyone I work with, to consciously attune, to make the decision to consciously attune to prosperity, consciously attune to abundance. Um, um, and entangle with those choices and those options. Because we always think when we're not attuning to prosperity and we're in the lack, we think there's one truth and that's our truth, when in actual fact that's not true. There is multiple truths, multiple options, multiple opportunities and choices in every second of every day. So my Facebook group is called Attune to Wealth. So anyone would love to join, that's free, and get to know me more and our people in there. It'd be great. And I have a program called Attune to Wealth Experience, because one of my philosophies is that we don't need to learn, and I know you will agree with this, we don't need to learn more strategies. We don't need to learn more techniques. It's from my perspective, people just would be wise to stop disallowing it. They have all the information. They have all the information, all the knowledge, all the wherewithal. They have everything they absolutely require to create whatever it is that they would love. We just need to stop disallowing it. And that's what Attune to Wealth Experience does. It's a series of revealing programs. It's 4 different programs held over 4 months. And they're not sit and watch videos. They are experiential. It's like me sitting next to you. So experience, it's done in a way that brings out and reveals. And when you start revealing stuff to yourself in your own words, what actually happens neurologically is your neurons start firing and reconnecting in completely different ways, that the story's gone and changed in that moment. I've had people go through these programs and come back to me in tears and say, I don't know what you did. I don't know what happened, but I can't feel that anymore. It's like gone, that pain, that anxiety, it's gone. Where's it gone? There's a moment of discomfort when you realize that story is gone, that pain, that anxiety is gone. And that is I created these programs after that experience I had here in Barbados, when I got powerful insight into how, because so many people do so many courses and read so many books and watch so much YouTube, and the struggle is the integration, is the embodying, is actually having the shifts. They know it academically, but to actually integrate it is the biggest challenge. And that's why I've created these programs, and it's like Attune to Cash, Attune to Money, Attune to Fortune, and Attune to Freedom, under the banner of Attune to Wealth, in the way that they are revealing programs with masterclasses and coaching with me. So that's the one thing which people can join as well. I've actually got one starting on the
Awesome.
1st of November.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. And for everyone listening, we're going to have links in the show notes for you as well, so that you don't have to worry about trying to track and trace everything, and you'll be able to stay in touch with Judy. So, Judy, thank you so much for being here and sharing your heart and your wisdom and your story. We really appreciate you being here. And thanks to all of you for being with us today. We'd love to hear your feedback. I know Judy would love to hear it as well. So, whatever insights and ahas you're getting, please let us know. Please be sure to share this episode with anyone that you think would benefit, which really is probably everyone. So, until we meet again next time, have a great rest of your day, everyone. We'll see you again soon.